Hello. In this session, we will talk about Git version control. So we'll learn how to manage versions of our works so that we can actually maintain several versions at the same time and still keep their relationship. So for instance, we might have a main version that is useful all the time that goes through, but we want to improve this one, fix problems, and do things like that. So for instance, we might need to fix a bug if it's a software, and then we don't want to break the current version while we're working on this, because it might be a lot of work that needs to be done, and then we want to keep the old version useful until then. But once we're done, we want to merge it back into the main branch and replace it with this updated version. And while someone was doing this bug fix, someone else might have added a new feature. So they were working on a new feature, which also took considerable amount of time. And around here, they managed to merge it in, so add the new feature. And during this entire time, main has always been in a useful state. And this is true whether it applies to documents or software or whatever we want to work on. So this is a nice workflow that helps us keep track of different versions and keep them functioning in parallel to each other as well. So let's get into it. We'll start talking about what's the problem, and then we discuss a solution, and finally we'll dig into Git itself in the third section here. So let's get started with what is the problem. So the questions we will answer is how to manage project files and handle them during development and manage future revisions, because whereas in some cases, like for instance your school work, you have a development phase. That's when you write your report or whatever it might be, and usually when you hand it in, you're done, so you don't do any future revisions of that. But usually if you're working in a company, then usually you have a software that you're maintaining, and then you also need to support future revisions like bug fixes and things like that. So then you have to manage it kind of forever almost. So yeah, you're probably familiar with several approaches to version management, and some are like Dropbox, for instance, or Box, or there are various alternatives like OneDrive is another one, and they have some sort of built-in version management that you can do. But you can't do branching and stuff like that, but it keeps track of the previous versions that you've uploaded of the files. And also there is the manual version management that most people use, which is to name the file report final version and report final version, and report draft version and whatnot. And also another approach is to name it by date and possibly also time to keep the different versions apart. And yeah, sure, this works, but it's not as efficient as what we are proposing in this session. So our solution is version management, and particularly to use a version control system. And in our case, we'll look at Git. So we want to do this instead of naming the files. So keep track of the different versions in a more systematic way. So the tool we'll use is Git, and the best way to get an overview of this is to look at some Git repos on GitHub. So we'll get to that. Let's bring up a browser. So let's open Firefox here and go to GitHub. So my virtual machine is not the fastest. But let's go to github.com. So this is a bit slow to load, but yeah, it works. So GitHub is a place that hosts Git repositories. So we'll have a look at some of mine. And particularly, we'll have a look at the repository for all the material in this course. So you see here, it's a lot of files that is kept, and we have in the modules here, we have the different modules like the terminal material and the SSH material, Git, which we're currently working in, and LaTeX. This Git version control system provides us with branches, as I told you. And I don't have that many branches in this particular repository. I just have one, which is the automatic grading system that we use in the course. And this one I want to refine and put it in a Docker container. But doing that is takes some work. And particularly, I don't want to break the current grading system, which actually works, because I want to be able to use it for grading your work. And when I'm done, I just want to merge this branch back into the main branch, and then bam, voila, it has replaced the old grading system. But you can have a lot more branches, and that is quite common. So it was rare that I don't have that many branches in this one. But we can look at my Introduction to Python Programming course. That one has considerably a lot more branches than our current course. So here I have quite a lot of development going on in parallel. So all these are different versions of the course material in that course. So for instance, I want to update one of the lectures or do some other replacements. So we can see the most active branches is the functions first branch here, where I'm working at the moment, trying to move the functions section much earlier in the course. And I don't want to ruin this material in case I don't get done on time by the time the course starts. I want to have my previous version still working and only replace it once I'm finished. And I still want to be able to fix some small problems like typos and stuff in the original version while I'm working on this one, and then I'll be able to merge both later, so I can keep both working in parallel. So let's get back to the slides. So there are two different types of version control systems. So one is centralized, and that's the traditional one. So then you have the current version you're working on locally, and all the history, so all previous versions are remotely hosted on a server. And example systems is CVS and SVN. They are still used, but we want to focus on another one, which is a distributed version. And in the meaning of distributed is that we have the current version locally, but we also have all the history locally. And the system we will use is Git, and Git is very popular system. So how does GitHub fit into this? Well, I already told you that GitHub is a Git repo hosting service. With so it provides both a way to host just the Git repositories, so all the contents, so to speak, but it also provides some side services which are not included in Git, like issue tracker, project Kanban boards, and they are all connected to the version control system. So we can have a look at that again. So let's bring up the Firefox again. So we can check. Let's have a look at our course actually to check the issues here. So it provides issues, which is things I would like to do and what I should do. And then it has pull requests, so stuff I'm working on, so the grader in Docker container, and I can also have the projects in different Kanban boards, so we can look into this one, for instance, so then I can organize the issues as to-dos and in progress review and so on, so I can do proper project management. So that is some of the things that GitHub provides on top of Git. KTH has its own instance of GitHub, so we're running a GitHub Enterprise system, which is private to KTH student and staff, and it has the URL gits 15 .sys.kth.se, so we can have a look at that one. We just go there, and then you need to log in with your KTH username and password, and it will look exactly the same. So